Hi travelers, welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, please hit the subscribe button. I share travel videos, resort tours, as well as travel deals from time to time on this channel, and it would be great to have you join along. Now, in this video, I'm going to share with you my tips on how to choose the best Alaska cruise itinerary. Now, there is many cruise lines that do cruise to Alaska. There is departures typically from Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada, where I'm located, but there also is out of Seattle in Washington State, the United States. And there is also, depending on the itineraries, there is some 7-day departures that leave from Alaska as well, then come down to either Seattle or Vancouver. So in this video, I will share with you my tips on how to choose the best itinerary to get to Alaska, to make sure you can experience the best that Alaska has to offer. Now, the first thing I recommend is, this is for Canadians. Obviously, as a Canadian, we have a great city called Vancouver, British Columbia, where a majority of the cruise ships will leave in the summer going to the Alaska run. If you can come to a cruise in Vancouver, I highly recommend that. It's definitely beneficial if you're a Canadian, because you're not having to deal with a very long flight, usually depending where you're coming from, but also there's no initial customs to go through at the airline for check-in. So it makes your vacation a little bit easier to get to Vancouver rather than traveling to Seattle. Just that's my first kind of tip for Canadians. Now, if you are an American coming on a cruise, I still do recommend coming to Vancouver. Vancouver is a beautiful city on the ocean, mountains, ocean, it is what it's known for. Come into Vancouver a day or two early, stay at a hotel right downtown, explore. You can go up to the mountains in the summer on a sky ride. You can also visit Stanley Park, which is very close to downtown Vancouver. Take a walking tour around the seawall. It's a great city to explore before your 7-day cruise or 14-day cruise to Alaska. Now, another tip that I recommend for Alaska is to do a round trip from Vancouver. This will take you up to Alaska, but also back to Alaska. And if you are flying into your departure city, this makes it a lot easier for airfare. You're only having to deal with one gateway, so you're flying into one city and you're returning on the cruise ship to the same city for your return flight. So it makes things easier for planning, and usually the prices will sometimes work out a little bit better if you have the same gateway for your travel to fly home. This is also a benefit if you are in the Lower Mainland of Vancouver. A lot of Canadians from the Lower Mainland, they sometimes forget about taking a summer vacation. We always seem to think we want to go somewhere in the wintertime when it's cold here to get down south. But Alaska, I recommend, if you are from Vancouver, you should really experience Alaska at least one time. It's a great vacation. It's a different type of vacation than you're normally going to be used to, but it is spectacular. The scenery in Alaska is amazing to see. And on that note for scenery, when you are choosing a Alaska cruise, you want to make sure that your cruise itinerary goes to Glacier Bay. Now, this is especially important if this is your first time going to Alaska. There is other itineraries that will visit some of the same ports in Alaska, but they will not visit Glacier Bay. They may visit Hubbard Glacier or another destination like that, but you're not going to be right in Glacier Bay. Now, Glacier Bay, you want to go see because it is stunning. You'll spend the whole day cruising in Glacier Bay. There is only 2 cruise ships allowed in Glacier Bay each day, so it is very limited. Not all the cruise lines will visit Glacier Bay on their itinerary, so it's very important when you're choosing a cruise itinerary to Alaska that you do pick one that includes Glacier Bay. Now, if you wanted suggestions on any cruise line itineraries that do include this Glacier Bay, my contact information is down below, so be sure to reach out. I have a couple of preferred itineraries throughout the upcoming 2020 cruise season that I can definitely share with you to get you the most experience out of Alaska. Now, back to Glacier Bay. When you do sail into Glacier Bay, you will spend the whole day. You'll enter in just around sunrise on the cruise ship, and what happens is the cruise ship will slow down and they will pick up the Glacier Bay park rangers, and there will be park rangers on board the cruise ship all day to provide some insights and some different discussions on Glacier Bay, and they will also show you and explain to you all the different areas that you're cruising past throughout the day. Now, you're in Glacier Bay almost the whole day. You enter very early in the morning, I would say roughly 6 o'clock when the sun comes up, and you are there all day until the afternoon visiting all the different spots in Glacier Bay. So as you're there, what happens is the cruise ship will go in one direction, and as it stops at each glacier, it will actually stop for a good almost hour, and the ship basically rotates around. So no matter where you are located on the ship, you will be able to see glaciers. You don't have to worry about the location of where you're standing. You'll always be able to see something in Glacier Bay. They do a very good job at making sure everybody gets a good opportunity to view these amazing glaciers. It's stunning. You can't even, words and the video cannot even describe the feeling, the sounds, and the experience of Glacier Bay. On your cruise, I would definitely recommend getting a veranda cabin when you are on an Alaska cruise, making sure when you are in Glacier Bay, it's nice to have your own area. There's lots of open areas on the various cruise ships on deck, but sometimes it's nice just to go back to your cabin. You're down on the ship, you're on your own, sitting on your little veranda, having a cup of coffee, maybe a glass of hot chocolate, or even a glass of champagne or wine if you wish. And experiencing it that way. It is a very, it's a stunning day. It's really hard to describe how it feels to be in Glacier Bay just with the sights and sounds. Definitely make sure your itinerary, I'll say it again, definitely make sure your itinerary includes Glacier Bay. And as I mentioned, it's very limited, so only 2 ships will go into Glacier Bay each day, so you will probably see one more ship either ahead of you or behind you, but they do a very good job, the captains of the ship. There's lots of distance between the ships, so your views are not blocked by the other cruise ship at any time. Glacier Bay, the way it is situated, it does kind of spread out in a couple of different arms of the park. And what will happen is the cruise ships will go into different areas at different times, and you'll crisscross at a couple of points, but you're never going to be right at the same area with another ship blocking your view. So you're going to have stunning views of Glacier Bay. After you've visited all the glaciers, you will slowly sail out, and the rangers will get dropped off, and then you will head off to your next port in Alaska. Now, another tip I have for Glacier Bay, and this is if you are a bit maybe uneasy and not sure about cruising the first time, maybe you get a little bit seasick. There's different itineraries, and the different itineraries go on a different route up to Alaska. Now, some of them, typically the ones from Seattle, will go on what's called the Outside Passage, and this is on the outside of Vancouver Island. Now, usually I've been on both Inside Passage and Outside Passage cruises. The Inside Passage, because it's more sheltered from the open ocean in the Pacific, it's going to be definitely a gentler ride. The waves are not as strong by any means on the Inside Passage. It's also a more scenic cruising. So when you're heading up and back down, if you're going Inside Passage both directions, you're gonna have some amazing scenery on the way up and back from Alaska through British Columbia. You'll see the Queen Charlotte Islands, Vancouver Island. You'll go through marine parks. You will see, chances are you're guaranteed to see a whale off the ship. When we were there, we saw whales, we saw dolphins, we saw seals. You'll see eagles. You'll see all different types of birds. It's quite an amazing trip. Make sure you choose one that includes the Inside Passage. Now, the reason I say that as well, as like I said before, the Outside Passage is on the outside of Vancouver Island, and it's open ocean to the Pacific. So the waves can be, and the ocean can be obviously rougher there. And when I had, what most people say is when they go that route, it is a bumpier, a rougher ride when you're on those sea days. So if you're not sure how you're gonna fare on sea days, make sure you do an Inside Passage cruise. The cruise that I took a number of years ago, we went back towards Seattle, and the Outside Passage was quite bumpy. A couple of people weren't overly seasick, but were definitely feeling the waves. So if you can do it, Inside Passage both ways, I highly recommend that. Now, excursions. There is a number of excursions that you can choose at each of these ports. No matter where you're stopping, check with what the cruise lines are offering. I always recommend booking your excursions through the cruise line. You'll have online access after you get your tickets closer to your sailing departure. You'll have access to your itinerary and your trip online. You can pre-book excursions this way. I highly recommend either pre-booking your excursions, or if you are waiting, wait till you get on board, book them through the cruise line. It's important to do this on your Alaska cruise, on any cruise really for this matter, is you're protected, and the operators that are offering these excursions, they're insured, they're licensed, they've been checked out by the cruise lines. But most importantly is if there's any type of delay with your pre-booked excursions through the cruise lines, the cruise ship will wait for you. at the port. So obviously, if you've never cruised before, cruise lines are like on a schedule, and if the time says we're leaving the port at 5 o'clock, they're leaving the port at 5 o'clock whether you are on board or not. So they do not wait around. The only time they would wait around is if they're in communication with one of the excursions and it is late coming back for whatever reason. It usually doesn't happen, but it's always nice to be protected, because if you go on your own excursion and do your own thing off the ship, if you are late getting back to the ship, there will be a ship there waiting for you. It will have sailed off, and it's almost a given. Sometimes once a cruise, you'll see people running along the pier as the ship is pulling out, and you don't want that to be you. All right, in my last tip, I have a couple of recommended cruise lines for the 2020 Alaska season, and these cruise offerings, they do offer itineraries with what I recommend from Vancouver, returning to Vancouver, sailing the Inside Passage, and visiting Glacier Bay. Typically they start off a 7-day package, but they can go up from there, 7 days, 14, 21 days. There's even longer cruises available as well. One of my preferred cruise lines is Holland America. They have a newer ship coming to Alaska this year, the Connex Dam. It's a newer style ship. It is built a couple of years ago. It's going to be the first time in Vancouver and first time going to Alaska. I am actually going to be visiting this ship on its way up to Vancouver from the States in April. So if you did want to see a little bit of sneak peek of this ship, be sure to subscribe to the video and hit the notification, and that way you'll get notified when I upload the video of the Connex Dam. Now the Connex Dam has some great 7-day itineraries out of Vancouver. It does a 7-day cruise, goes to Glacier Bay, and then returns to Vancouver. Okay, some of the 7-day cruise itineraries out of Vancouver don't return to Vancouver. You're having to fly back. So if you're a local from the Lower Mainland, you're having to have a flight added to the end of your trip. So definitely recommend Holland America for some great 7-day packages. The prices are very good. They do book up though. Alaska cruise is a very, very popular destination, and the cruise ships throughout the summer are typically going full all the time. So if you are thinking about this, reach out to me. My contact information is down below, and you can find my info there and reach out. I can send you some itineraries along with pricing. Now, another cruise line I do recommend, more of the luxury end of it, all-inclusive, is Seabourn. And I had the opportunity to tour one of the Seabourn ships last summer while she was in Vancouver before heading up to Alaska. I'll link the video up above so you can see the Seabourn Sojourn. Beautiful, beautiful ship. All-inclusive package on this one. All the alcohol is included, all the food. It's definitely a luxury cruise experience. Smaller ship, definitely known for their service, so it's worth checking that out. Now Seabourn does things a little bit differently. They're a bit more adventure orientated, so a lot of the excursions that they have actually go right off the ship. And it's because it's a smaller ship, they can get it to some ports up in Alaska that aren't necessarily going to be visited by the big cruise lines. And on board the Seabourn ships, they have Zodiacs, so a lot of the excursions will actually involve taking Zodiacs off of the ship to these little parts and little areas of Alaska that you are not going to see from a big ship. Now some of the Seabourn itineraries are a little bit longer, so if you would like some more information on that, they do visit Glacier Bay, which is great, but they have some amazing kind of longer departures, but also they do have some departures from leaving from Vancouver and returning to Vancouver. I definitely recommend, if you're looking for a luxury cruise experience to Alaska, give me a call, send me an email, but let's talk about Seabourn this year. All right, there you have it. Those are my tips for getting the best out of an Alaska cruise, how to pick an Alaska cruise for 2020. There is lots of choices. If you've probably been looking online, if you're considering an Alaska cruise, there's so many cruise lines, but I've narrowed it down to my 2 favorites and that have some of the best itineraries for Alaska. So again, reach out to me. My contact information is all down below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'll be sharing, again, like I said, a video of the Connex Dam, and make sure to subscribe so you can see that when I do post it. And in terms of waiting for my next video, you can watch this one.